RANADRILL weekly podcast.
Mr. Thomas, do you think that, or do you believe that firms with only their own efforts can really succeed to lessen the share of 15% of, 15% in operations by 2050?
Yes. When you're essentially an oil company or a gas company, you're producing oil and gas. And it's not like, they could just decide to produce less oil and gas. That's what really a lot of activists, but also governments then under the pressure of activists, I would say oftentimes it's sort of a populist pressure. It looks like there's a simple solution. Just somehow make it difficult for the oil and gas companies to produce oil and gas. And that was tried for a while. That was popular for a while. And what happened is after Corona, because of this pressure, but also because of Corona, there wasn't a lot of investment in producing oil and gas, not to mention producing it much more cleanly. And so what happened is you had a bit of a disaster. There wasn't enough oil and gas.
Exactly.
You can't cut it off unless you have something else, because people still want to drive to work and drive to the store and so forth and need industry. So to me, the key thing to decarbonize and to reduce what the oil companies produce, which is carbon, is to actually make the alternatives real. And that's proving to be very difficult. If they want to do something like reduce their own carbon footprint, like every business might want to, on the one hand, people almost always what they say, well, one thing is to prevent leaks. And of course, that's a big deal, especially in the gas industry. You want to prevent leaks. And after all, you make more money if you prevent leaks because you sell more gas and you don't waste it. So that's sort of a no-brainer, but it depends on the country you're in and what the rules and regulations are and if it's a big company or not. The other thing is electrification. And you can electrify a lot of things that are done in oil and gas fields and so forth. But the problem is you have to produce that electricity in a green way. And that's what the world is having a problem with. You might electrify your production in an oil field and find out it's all coming from a coal plant.
By the way, I have to talk about the solutions to decarbonize the oil and gas sector. So, Mr. Thomas, let's say that many solutions have been deployed to find alternatives to fossils prior to curb emissions, but we shelter to fossils in 80% of our energy needs. So one of the vital solutions is to generalize the electrification based on renewables, EV, electrify the industry on the way to get rid of fossils gradually. So can we say that it's okay, we eliminate fossils?
But the problem is it hasn't worked. It's failed. And not only has the price of electricity in Germany gone up, as Osama points out with renewables, it's very high. In the United States, their competitors, well, of course, it wasn't the end of oil and gas. With fracking, they discovered more oil, more gas, and the price went down. So the gap has killed their competitiveness. So they were relying on Russian gas, and the Russians knew they had them. And then the Russians thought this would be a great weapon when they started their war, and they cut it off. Well, okay, so now they're buying American or Qatari LNG, but it's not so cheap. And the truth is, I think we have to just say very clearly, the 100% renewable project has failed.